Hey, quick note, if you're not caught up with the manga, then watch this video at your own risk. My relationship with One Piece isn't atypical for a 90s baby. I first started watching it when the 4Kids dub was being aired on Toonami, and I thought it was neat, but didn't really care about it, preferring Naruto. It was always in the back of my mind though, and in 2014 I was browsing Toonami and saw it again. This was about the end of the Funimation airing of Water 7, and while I don't remember what episode I specifically started on, I know that the opening being played was Kokoro no Chizu, so my guess would be around episode 260. From there, the series was firmly planted in my mind, and I followed it on the wiki but didn't watch or read it. That is, until 2019 when I did my first full read-through of the series, and while I liked it before, I was absolutely hooked now. Fast forward 5 years, and I'm a massive fan of the series. And while I have thoughts about the anime, recently mostly negative, one thing I've loved without question is the opening. Speaking of openings, let's talk about us. No, not you and me. I mean the 26th opening of One Piece. Usually when a new opening starts, it takes me some time before I really start to like it, but with us, I was hooked immediately. Sung by Hiroshi Kitadani, it's a very One Piece opening. High energy, lots of character interaction, and relevant visuals. There's not much to say about it from that regard. It doesn't really do anything special, but god damn does it do it amazingly. Us begins with the shot of the Thousand Sunnies sailing through the ocean. The shot zooms in on the deck and crew, finishing on Luffy's smile and cutting to the crew walking in their Egghead outfits. Luffy then takes off with his science boots to the usual reactions of his crewmates. The shot cuts to the Vegaforce 1 carrying the Sunny across the ocean filled with the outlines of the robotic sea creatures that patrol the island's waters. Several scenes then cycle of the Straw Hats' early adventures on the island, including Luffy, Jewelry Bonnie, Jinbei, and Chopper feasting on the island's science food, the rest of the crew marching on the Sky Island like clouds, before showing Luffy in a junkyard and seeing Vegapunk's Stella in the distance. In the next scene, with Vegapunk's apple antenna serving as the base, the satellites revolve around it in what looks like a character select screen. First, Shaka the Good and Lilith the Evil My Beloved, complete with shit-eating grin. Then Atlas the Violent and Edison the Thinker, and finally, York the Greedy draped over poor Pythagoras the Wise. Stella pops up and makes the silly faces you'd expect of someone of his above-average intelligence. The CPE-0 agents Kaku, Stussy, and Rob Lucci sit in the background, faces shrouded while their masks take up the foreground. Having observed through a window, Luffy and Chopper scramble through the lab causing untold mayhem before Luffy lands on a couch with Zoro, referring to chapter 1074 where they stay back while the rest search the labo phase. The lights flick off, revealing a bigger holographic screen behind them, cycling through the 3 new major factions at play. First is the Vegapunks, who get pushed aside by the G-14 Marines with Kizaru demolishing some noodles and Hibari and Helmeppo in shambles, much to the annoyance of Vice Admiral Dahl, with Garp behind them causing major problems for everyone. The Marines are then pushed down by the 3 heads of Cross Guild, Mihawk ruining Buggy's life and Crocodile being absolutely disgusted by his incompetence before Luffy, who had flung himself up and over the screen, burst through the hologram to both Zoro and Buggy's horror. Notably, the previously smooth animation here changes slightly before going back to normal almost immediately as focus shifts back to Luffy. Luffy, now in Gear 5, is having a grand old time as Kobe and Hibari, now at full lead, run from the giant stony eye of Avalo Pizarro. And finally, we get to the reason why I wanted to make this video in the first place. Most of the stuff in this opening is surface level, that's what happens this arc kind of stuff with no deeper meaning behind it. But, not this scene. This brief 1-second shot contains 6 blinking you'll miss it symbols and they're all very meaningful. To start, the foreground is Jewelry Bonnie using her Age powers on Luffy, Jinbei, and Chopper, who are surrounded by a bunch of gemstones which can be produced as a side effect of her powers as used on Stella in chapter 1072. In the background, moving along there's several symbols. First is the crosshair symbol present on Kuma's outfit, then the Nikyu paw, both of which symbolize Kuma's connection with Bonnie. Next up is Nika, symbolizing her belief in the power of Nika and the future Nika can provide for everyone. Following that is a symbol that closely resembles Saint J. Garcia Saturn's Devil Fruit form, with him serving as the main antagonist of this arc and a very personal one to Bonnie. Next up is the native hunting competition target that was placed on the victims of that cruel game. And finally, the hoof of the celestial dragons representing the slavery that Kuma and Guinea were both in. Finally, there's some weird floating zipper-like thing around that breaks, but I'm not quite sure what it's meant to represent. It's there though, this scene is pretty meaningful, so I assume that's meaningful too. Cutting back to the usual, we have Atlas high-fiving the viewer and get White Woman jump scared by Shachi, Penguin, and Beppo in a leaking submarine. Cut to a circling camera shot of sword agents with pirates in the background who are quickly made less threatening by Hibari's flower power. The sword agents are then replaced by a darkened Sentomaru and his army of pacifistas, whose lasers charge and are used to smoothly transition to Kizaru, plummeting through the air, leg charging and ready to kick, before once again smoothly transitioning to Kuma breaking free of his shackles. The scene then cuts to S-Shark in the lab with the screen rotating and sending him underwater, symbolizing the true power of Fishman, before Bonnie breaches through the surface. Hard cut to my favorite shot in this entire opening, young Sentomaru looking at Kizaru's finger laser. Look at him. No, really, look at him. Look at him. That's my boy. That's my boy Sentomaru right there. He's enjoying this light show. He is enjoying the lights Kizaru is putting on for him. You go, little sumo dude. You fucking go! Hell yeah! Anyway, back on the normal topic, the One Piece opening. Kizaru's laser shoots through the atmosphere into an explosion of color, and the dust settles into what I think is a monster of some kind. Cut to a shot of Shaka on a red background with various handprints and what I assume are the Cypherpole agents trapped on the island. Then York pats a snake's head like in chapter 1075. This scene also doubles as the reveal of her giving the Seraphims the order to attack. Finally, all of Luffy's outfits cycle as he walks and is joined by the rest of the Straw Hats whose outfits similarly cycle, before they all end in their Egghead outfits. Next up, Luffy and Rob Lucci, both in their awakened forms, face off, and out of the mechanical rubble spawns the major fights of the arc. Kid vs. Shanks, Law vs. Blackbeard, Garp vs. Kuzan, and Zoro vs. S-Hawk. It then cuts back to Luffy and Rob Lucci, whose hockey-coated fists collide and explode into Sabo at Mary Joie with Karasu's soot crows flying in the background. The crows then transition to seagulls flying past the clock tower in Mary Joie, which themselves transition to Morgans hiding two figures with his wing. I can't quite tell who the Wapol on the left is, but Vivi is actually pretty well hidden behind his wings, since no one's supposed to know he's aiding them. Some books appear falling down representing forbidden knowledge. Two individuals with flowers and black clothes appear in mourning for someone, likely Cobra, because he laid eyes on Emu in the empty throne. Finally, we cycle through the four battered and bruised youths, then cut to Vivi approaching an opening in a wall, before finally landing on Bonnie plunging her hands into Kuma's orange memory goop. Then cut to the Straw Hats walking on as the camera pans up and reveals Egghead and the rest of the new world, finally settling on a shot of Luffy falling backward, and the title card. Now, I've completely avoided talking about the lyrics, and that's because there just isn't much to talk about. It's just a very One Piece opening, like I said before. It's very in-depth with the us symbolism, or the living legend symbolism, but that's One Piece fare. However, there are a few noteworthy instances of animation and lyrical synergy that I want to bring up now. First off, when cycling through the main fights of the arc, the lyrics roughly translate to, "When random contexts start to make sense on their own, the threads of time are spun back together." Egghead as an arc has been very here, there, and everywhere. It's gone to so many seemingly random places that seem to have no bearing on what's going on to our silly rubber boy, but even at this point in the manga, we've started to realize how they're all connected, much like the lyrics imply. Then, when Kid, Law, Kobe, and Sabo are woundedly walking, the lyrics roughly translate to, "The world keeps changing along with us." There's a heavy emphasis on the us concept in the song in general, but these few frames really serve to highlight how, for better or for worse, be it in malice or compassion, the choices and actions these guys have made have changed the world. Whew, boy, okay, that was a lot. Like I said, this opening isn't super deep like some anime have, but it jam-packs so much into it that I think the animators genuinely forgot they don't have 2.5 minutes openings anymore. It's all very necessary though, since Egghead itself is such a dense arc. As of the time I'm making this video, it's my favorite arc in any piece of fiction, usurping my previous number one of the railgun side of the Sisters arc from a certain scientific railgun. If this video does well enough, I think I might make a similar video on Sisters Noise, though I know that has a lot less to it. Anyway, I'm out, and remember, the world keeps changing along with us. Catch ya in whatever I decide to make next.